What if the true secret of Eden wasn't Eve, but a forbidden encounter between Adam and Lucifer? The story of creation has always been told as a drama of love, disobedience, and punishment. But what happens when we turn to forgotten manuscripts, to the legends that never reach the pulpit? What happens when the silence of the Bible seems to hide something too great to be revealed? Genesis speaks of a serpent approaching Eve, but ancient apocryphal accounts suggest that this wasn't the first encounter. There are fragmented records that speak of an earlier meeting, not with Eve, but with Adam, a secret encounter, an unwritten dialogue, a forbidden negotiation. Why would tradition erase such a scene? Who would want to protect the image of an untouched Adam, pure, without any trace of a pact? According to occult interpretations preserved in the margins of rabbinic manuscripts, there was a visitor of light who came down to Eden not only to provoke, but to teach, a being who did not present himself as an enemy, but as a bearer of an offer. Lucifer, the fallen angel, would not have waited for Eve. He would have gone straight to the man, to the first one, not to deceive him, but to propose something. But what? Power beyond what was allowed, wisdom that even God had hidden, or perhaps a pact that would forever change the destiny of humanity. Picture the scene, Eden in silence before the fall, before the bite. Adam alone contemplating the garden. It's in this moment that the luminous figure appears, not as a serpent, but as an angel. The original form, beautiful, imposing, irresistible. There was no sin yet, no fear, only the possibility of choice. Lucifer may have said, "Adam, you are called the first man, but don't you see that you are also the first prisoner?" If those words were truly spoken, everything changes. Adam would not be just an innocent deceived. He would be someone who, in secret, listened to a forbidden offer. But the great question remains. What did Adam reply? Did he accept in silence, reject in fear, or did he make a pact that was later broken, placing the weight of the fall on Eve as a distraction? The legends suggest that in that encounter, Adam received words that were never meant to be remembered, words buried beneath layers of theology, censorship, and fear. And this is where the documentary begins to open like a forgotten wound. What if Eden was not only the garden of innocence, but also the stage for a secret negotiation between man and the exiled angel? That question might be the greatest scandal of faith, and maybe that's exactly why no one dares to speak of it. If Adam truly encountered Lucifer in Eden, then the fall of humanity did not begin with Eve, but with a masculine silence that was never confessed. What do you think about this? Share your thoughts in the comments. What if the first fall was not Eve's, but Adam's in secret? Adam's silence has always puzzled theologians and occultists alike. Why did the first man, created directly by divine hands, remain so vulnerable to Eve's gesture? Why did he simply accept the forbidden fruit without question? The official scriptures frame this silence as submission or complicity. But forgotten texts suggest something deeper, a prior burden, a secret Adam carried even before the bite. If there truly was a secret encounter between Adam and Lucifer, then Eve's act would only be the consequence of a choice, already made in the shadows, a pact not fulfilled, but sealed through a glance, a desire, a silence. Some Gnostic manuscripts speak of a divided Adam, not only flesh and spirit, but light and shadow. This duality, they claim, was the result of a word planted by Lucifer in man's heart. You are not complete, Adam. They gave you the garden, but they hid the throne. But what throne was this? Could heaven have been hiding the truth that man was not born only to cultivate, but to rule? If this revelation were true, then original sin would not have begun with a fruit, but with a promise. A promise Adam never dared to confess. A disturbing question remains. Why does the official narrative insist so strongly on blaming Eve, when Adam's silence is far more unsettling? What if the woman was merely a smokescreen to cover the encounter between man and the rebel angel? Ancient apocryphal commentaries suggest that the visitor promised Adam the key to absolute knowledge, something only possible by breaking a sacred order. But Adam hesitated, he feared, and in that hesitation, Lucifer turned his eyes toward Eve. finding in her the spark of curiosity that man lacked. It was not then a simple accident. It was strategy. Adam refused or faltered. Eve accepted. But the original pact, the boldest invitation, had been offered to the first man. This perspective changes everything. What we call the fall of humanity may have been, in truth, the breaking of a secret covenant between Adam and Lucifer, an unfulfilled pact that forever sealed woman's fate as scapegoat. What if the entire story told from the pulpit is only a veil to hide the failure of the first man? What if Eve was accused simply because someone had to pay the price for a greater secret? That question has burned through the centuries like a forbidden flame, and those few who dared to touch it were silenced, branded heretics, cast out of religious tradition. Yet fragments remain, forgotten texts, shards of hidden gospels that speak of an unkept oath, a pact Adam may have made in silence, one that would forever alter the story of creation. If this touched you, like this video and hit the share button to spread what was always meant to stay hidden. What if Adam not only met Lucifer, but swore an oath before him? The official versions of creation always describe Adam as silent, obedient, a victim of Eve's choices. But the forgotten texts, Gnostic fragments, rabbinic notes scribbled in the margins of manuscripts tell another story, a dangerous one. They speak of a first oath, a pact made not before Eve, but before the bearer of light. Lucifer, still in his angelic form, is said to have appeared before Adam, not as a serpent, not as an enemy, but as an instructor, as the one offering a path beyond what was permitted. And in that encounter, Adam did not fully resist. He did not fall, but neither did he reject. In silence, he is said to have whispered yes, not a spoken yes, but an inner consent, a pact without signature carved only into the heart. But that oath was never fulfilled. Faced with the weight of divine command, Adam pulled back. Faced with Eve's innocence, he remained silent. And in that silence, he became the first to betray. A disturbing question arises. If there was a pact between Adam and Lucifer, who was the real traitor of the story? The angel who offered, or the man who accepted then turned away? Some Gnostic writings claim Adam received knowledge before the fruit. The fruit did not blind him. It only confirmed what had already been told. If that is true, then the fall was not a feminine accident, but the consequence of a broken masculine promise. Eve would not be guilty, but used as a smokescreen to conceal Adam's failure. Picture the scene in Eden. Adam standing before a radiant Lucifer, hearing forbidden words. They gave you the garden, but they hid the throne. They gave you life, but denied you the power of creation. I swear to you, there is more than what you see. Adam is said to have bowed his head, accepting in silence. But when the time came to fulfill the oath, he stepped back. And in that retreat, the weight fell on Eve. Her act only revealed to the world what had already been planted within him. Why does the Bible fall silent when the scandal is too great? Why did tradition choose to build millennia of guilt upon the woman, when the first man had already surrendered in his heart? This revelation changes everything. The first fall was not Eve's, it was Adam's, in silence before an oath unkept. If this is true, then all theology built since Eden rests on a lie. Humanity did not fall because of the woman, but because of a secret pact, broken in the heart of the first man. Subscribe. What comes next is even darker. What if there was a secret book torn from the Bible that revealed the words Lucifer once spoke to Adam? The official tradition speaks only of books inspired by God. But what about the forbidden ones, the texts ripped from history, because they revealed too much? Among them, there are mysterious mentions of a lost writing, known by some as the Testament of the First Man. Almost nothing survived, only fragments whispered through Gnostic manuscripts and Coptic traditions. But all agree on one thing. Within it were the words Lucifer spoke to Adam during the encounter that was never meant to be remembered. Why did this book disappear? Who would have gained from erasing the words of the fallen angel, if not the guardians of faith themselves? What we know from these fragments is deeply unsettling. It is said that Lucifer not only offered wisdom, but revealed to Adam a hidden destiny. You were shaped from clay, but you are not clay. You were made to be equal, but they wanted you as a servant. If you break the boundary, you will become like those who now watch over you. If true, this line shatters the very heart of traditional theology. It is not mere temptation. It is an accusation. Lucifer would not simply have offered rebellion, but shown Adam that he was already living under a veil, a prisoner in a garden that was both paradise and prison. But the most shocking of all is another fragment, even bolder. Lucifer is said to have warned, "If it is not you, it will be the woman. And if not the woman, then your children. For fire cannot be contained in clay forever." Here lies the key. If these words were truly spoken, then Eve was never the origin of the fall. She was only the inevitable channel of a rebellion already foretold. The fall did not begin with a fruit, but with a sentence. Adam heard but did not fulfill the oath. Eve heard later and became the vessel. And all of humanity bore the mark of a forgotten promise. So why was the book torn from tradition? Perhaps because, had it survived, the entire construction of feminine guilt would have collapsed. Perhaps because, if we had access to Lucifer's exact words, we would see that his offer was not merely destruction, but revelation. And that revelation could either set faith free or destroy it. An unavoidable question remains. If Adam was the first to hear Lucifer's voice, how can we keep blaming only Eve? And what if the true fall was never human error, but part of an architecture where even God knew the garden was never meant to last? The book is lost, but its shadow lingers. And between the lines of history, Lucifer's voice still echoes. If not you, then another. For nothing born to be free can be caged forever. Share this with someone who needs to see what was hidden. What if Adam wasn't created merely to obey, but to rule, and Lucifer was the only one who reminded him of it? In official religious tradition, Adam is portrayed as a faithful servant, the gardener of Eden, shaped only to tend to creation. But in occultist, Kabbalistic, and Gnostic circles, there is a darker interpretation. Adam was created to be a king, a ruler of the earth, the mirror of divine authority. This vision appears in ancient commentaries on the Kabbalah, Denudata, and in Gnostic manuscripts preserved in Egypt. They speak of an Adam who was not simple, but majestic, immense, almost angelic. He was called Adam Kadmon, the primordial man, a being made not only to obey, but to command. And here lies the most disturbing secret. Lucifer is said to have reminded Adam of this vocation. The fallen angel did not bring only rebellion, but awareness. They gave you the garden as consolation, but they hid from you the throne of the earth. You are born of clay and of light. You were not created to serve, but to reign. If these words truly echoed in Eden, then the fall of humanity was not mere disobedience. It was the refusal of a man to accept the prison of his own existence. And here arises the unsettling question. If God knew of this potential within Adam, why would he hide it? Why create a man capable of ruling only to condemn him to the role of gardener? Some Kabbalists suggest this was the first trial, a test of loyalty. God concealed the truth to see if Adam would discover it on his own, without outside influence. But who appeared first to remind him? Lucifer. Thus the fallen angel was not just a tempter. He was a messenger, the one who brought to light the destiny that was meant to remain hidden. If this is true, then Adam was split in two, a man before God, obedient, a man before Lucifer, hesitant, ambitious, silent, and this duplicity became the root of the fall. Adam could no longer be just a servant because he had seen the crown. He could no longer be only a gardener because he had heard of the throne. And by refusing to fulfill the oath, he handed his unrest to Eve, who, by tasting the fruit, only gave flesh to what already lived in his heart. Eve, then, was not the origin. She was the reflection. Her gesture gave body to Adam's unkept covenant, and the question bursts open like a wound. Does humanity still carry the weight of this hidden destiny? A call to rule that turned into eternal guilt? If the Kabbalists were right, Eden was never a paradise. It was a golden prison, and Lucifer, the rebel jailer, was the only one who dared to hand over the key, even if that key came at the price of the fall. If Adam was created to reign and failed, then Eden was not the loss of innocence. but the loss of a crown, and perhaps even now, humanity is still trying to reclaim a throne it never truly occupied. Have you ever wondered about this? Share your thoughts in the comments. What if the true key to Eden was never the fruit, but what Adam never dared to reveal? The shadow of Adam's silence stretched across the garden. He was not only the first man, he was the first to hear the promise of a power that was not his, yet offered to him. A power Lucifer claimed was hidden beneath the divine veil, concealed in plain sight. In fragments of Coptic manuscripts, there is mention of a gesture, subtle, almost imperceptible. Adam is said to have touched a stone at the center of Eden, not as one who admires, but as one who recognizes something familiar. The stone, they say, carried ancient inscriptions, codes only he could decipher, a legacy left for mankind long before the fruit was ever presented. Lucifer is said to have whispered, "Everything lies before you, Adam, but you hesitate. Choose to be a gardener or choose to be a king." The paradox is devastating. The choice was there, visible yet forbidden, a test and a trap at the same time. There was no serpent yet, no sin, only the gaze of an angel who knew human ambition better than man himself. Some Gnostic texts claim this moment created a secret void inside Adam, a fracture between what he was and what he could become. Man found himself divided, to obey or to rule, to submit or to rebel, a duality never recorded in official tradition. And the question that echoes through centuries, what if the forbidden fruit was just a distraction? What if Eve was only part of a larger plan, orchestrated to test the first man? The tension grows when a lost manuscript hints that Lucifer offered more than knowledge, a veiled alliance, one that could alter forever the established order. A pact Adam hesitated to accept, but in that hesitation, humanity's fate was already sealed. And here emerges the darkest secret, a symbol carved into the stone, invisible to any not chosen, a symbol that tied the power of Eden to the essence of every man who would come after. A silent promise that the fall was never an accident, but the consequence of what had already been offered and refused. The air of the garden seemed to vibrate with that silence. Every leaf, every shadow, a witness to a covenant that was never meant to be broken, yet was already fracturing in Adam's heart. He looked at Lucifer and something shifted, something that would change the destiny of all. And then, as if Eden itself held its breath, Lucifer vanished. Not in defeat, but as a warning. Man remained alone, holding the key to power and the weight of the secret. What would he do? Embrace the silent invitation or retreat, as he had already begun? Like this, if any part of it made you uneasy. What if the words of Eden were older than creation itself, and only Adam was able to hear them? The silence of the garden, shattered with a whisper only the first man could understand. Among stones and shadows, Adam discovered something absent from the official accounts, an ancient manuscript, hidden beneath tangled roots, inscribed in characters that seemed alive, pulsing with an energy beyond human comprehension. The document, lost to history, spoke not of Eve or the fruit. It spoke of choice, of power, and of consequence. Each line was a mirror of Adam's own soul, revealing the fracture Lucifer had already pointed out: light and shadow, command and submission, possibility and limit. In the margins, strange marks and symbols hinted that Adam was not only being watched, but tested. Every gesture, every hesitation, recorded in a language only the human heart could decipher. A silent warning: if you do not take it, another will. If you step back, all will suffer. And then came the vision. An angel of light, unlike anything we know, rose from the shadows, carrying with him the echo of a forbidden truth. Lucifer was not there to punish, but to instruct, to remind Adam of the throne denied to him. They hide the power from you, Adam, but they do not hide the test. Choose now or forever. The man was torn. To accept the silent pact meant defying everything he knew. To retreat meant condemning not only himself, but all of humanity. And so the question that echoed through centuries emerged: who truly decides the fate of man, if not man himself? Fragments of the manuscript suggested that every action Adam took in Eden carried infinite ripples. like waves on a lake that never stilled. Even Eve, the forgotten texts claimed, was part of a greater design, a catalyst for the secret that was never meant to be revealed. But then something unexpected occurred. A symbol began to glow on the pages, a triangle entwined with a serpent, pulsing red and gold. A signature, say the apocrypha, that Adam's choice was not merely human, it was celestial and dangerous. The moment Adam touched the symbol, the garden fell completely silent. Every leaf, every shadow, every breath of wind carried the memory of a broken covenant and of words never meant to be read. The manuscript spoke and yet silenced itself, leaving only the weight of decision, a question that challenges both faith and time. What if humanity's fall did not begin with Eve, but with a man's hesitation before the impossible? What if the power of Eden was always within reach, but man's fear kept him from grasping the future? The manuscript closed on its own, as though it had a mind. Adam was left with empty hands and a heavy heart. And in the silence that followed, Lucifer left his most haunting message. The choice made in Eden would echo for millennia, shaping all that was to come. Subscribe. The truth doesn't end here. Help choose the next themes. Unlock exclusive content. What if the first decision of man carried echoes no one ever dared to hear? Eden was never just a garden. It was a stage for silent choices. Adam walked among trees that seemed to watch him, roots that seemed to whisper secrets. Every step carried an invisible weight, not a judgment from God, but from the knowledge already placed inside him. Forgotten fragments of apocryphal texts speak of a voice that echoes in silence, a sound only Adam's heart could perceive, a memory of a covenant almost sealed, of a promise he hesitated to fulfill. Lucifer did not appear, yet his presence lingered in every detail. The shimmer of leaves, the wind that moved without cause, the scent of fruit not yet touched. The man found his reflection in a crystal-clear lake. But it wasn't just his face he saw. It was the projection of a divided destiny, Adam as king, or Adam as slave to ignorance. Every choice already made reverberated through time like a silent prophecy. A disturbing question. What if Eve was only the curtain hiding the hesitation of the first man? What if the true covenant was written not in words, but in gestures no one else could read? The vanished manuscript returned to Adam's mind. He remembered the glowing symbol, the triangle entwined with the serpent. It was more than a sign. It was both invitation and warning. And as he looked toward the horizon of Eden, he realized time in the garden was not linear. Past and future overlapped, showing that the choice of one man would define generations to come. And then, in the deepest silence, laughter rippled among trees that were never meant to laugh. Sweet and cutting, it reminded him that knowledge and power always demand a price. The invisible voice of Lucifer whispered, "They cannot see, but I did. They cannot touch, but I have. You, Adam, held the key, and you hesitated. What will you do now?" The tension consumed him. Adam understood that his hesitation was not his alone, it was humanity's. Every fear, every doubt, every retreat would be inherited by those who followed. And if he failed, the promise of kingship, the throne Lucifer revealed, would be lost forever, buried under layers of tradition and silence. A question that challenges centuries. What if Eden was never the paradise of innocence, but a test of courage? What if the true sin was never eating the fruit, but refusing what man already carried in his heart? The wind shook the leaves with sudden force. Adam felt the call of the impossible. The future of Eden and of all mankind was about to be defined. The silence grew unbearable. Tag someone who would dare to watch until the end. What if the true weight of Eden was never in the fruit, but in what Adam never revealed? The garden was silent, yet heavy with an unseen presence. Every shadow stretched longer, every tree felt older, as if Eden itself breathed the secret pressing upon Adam. He knew his choices would be etched, not only in history, but in the very essence of humanity. Apocryphal texts describe that moment as the last gaze of Eden, a moment when the first man faced not mere temptation, but the awareness of his own power. Lucifer never appeared in form. He didn't need to. His influence pulsed through Adam's veins, in every doubt, in every hesitation. The manuscript returned to his mind, along with the symbol that once glowed on stone, a triangle entwined with a serpent, an enigma impossible for ordinary eyes, yet painfully clear to the one who bore the weight of forbidden knowledge. It was a promise, a warning, and an opportunity, all at once. A provocative question. What if the true covenant was accepted or rejected in that instant, sealing the fall long before the fruit was touched? What if humanity still carries the echo of that silent decision? Adam felt the crushing solitude. Eden was not just a stage. It was a tribunal, a teacher, a mirror of his choices. He realized hesitation was not weakness, it was the essence of free will. But it was also dangerous. Each flicker of doubt carried infinite consequences, like ripples stretching endlessly through time. Then came the most unsettling revelation. It was not Eve, nor the fruit that sealed destiny. It was Adam's decision before the impossible, to accept or to refuse what Lucifer had offered in secret, to rule or remain a servant, to know or to stay blind. Every path stood before him, but each demanded a courage few would ever possess. And in the final moment, the manuscript whispered one last phrase, unheard by angels, unheard by heaven itself. What is done now, Adam, will be the seed of all that comes after, and the world will wait upon your courage or your silence. The garden held its breath. Eden waited. The fate of humanity hung by an invisible thread, heavy beyond measure. And Adam alone faced the impossible. A final question before the end. What if everything we know of sin and the fall is only the shadow of a silent choice? What if the truth of Eden was hidden so we could never fully grasp it? If this unsettled you, that was the point. Comment below. What if the fall of humanity was never Eve's fault, but born from a silence no one dared to reveal? Eden reveals itself as something far beyond paradise. Every tree, every shadow, every stone bears witness to invisible decisions. Adam realizes the true story was never about disobedience or fruit. It was about power, choice, and knowledge. A silent pact never fulfilled, yet powerful enough to shape everything that came after. In apocryphal texts, there is mention of a final warning whispered by Lucifer. They call it a fall when it was a test. They call it sin when it was freedom. You, Adam, held the key and hesitated. And with your hesitation, the world became a slave to fear. The first man understood at last. The burden was not on Eve, nor even on Lucifer. It was on him, on the gesture he never dared to make, on the voice he never dared to hear, on the choice he retreated from in the face of the impossible. Every future generation would inherit that silence, the shadow of a throne never claimed. What if all of humanity was meant to embrace what Adam refused? What if the story we were taught is only the safe version, covering the truth of what truly happened in Eden? The words of the lost manuscript echo in Adam's mind. All was given, but few dared to take. All was shown, but most chose to shut their eyes. Eden closes slowly upon the man. Lucifer fades, but the memory of light and promise remains. The garden is not merely a place of punishment or innocence. It is a stage of choices that define destinies, of trials that stretch across centuries. Adam now understands that true power was never in the fruit nor in disobedience, but in the awareness that every choice carried the weight of the universe. And that hesitation, that silence, can be as devastating as rebellion. And in the end, one final provocation. What if this is the truth? Why do we still keep our eyes closed? If the silent pact had been fulfilled, would we have ruled or been ruled? And what if freedom and responsibility have always stood before us, yet we refuse to see them? And if all this is real, write your truth below.